Hey, Metalheads. Welcome to our second Metal Wire podcast, where this month our special guest is Dan Lorenzo, who is well known on the metal scene for his work with Hades, Nonfiction, and The Curse, to name a few. Today, Dan's going to update us on what's going on with him and his new band, Vessel of Light, and we'll also talk about his past metal history, as well as what the band's doing and what they're going to be up to next. Dan, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Carol.
Thank you. Before we talk about Vessel of Light, let's go back in time a little bit and tell us a little bit about how you got onto the metal scene and your metal history.
Well, I started playing guitar way back in 1978 because I was in love with the band Kiss, and by the time I could figure out Kiss songs, which was about a year later, Kiss changed their sound a lot, so I wasn't really as enamored with them as I had been at the beginning. I started writing some originals right away, but they were kind of like high school, nothing amazing. And then Hades actually started playing covers by, we'll say, Judas Priest, AC/DC, Cheap Trick, pretty much everybody, a lot of Iron Maiden songs, and we actually would be playing the clubs in the early 80s around New Jersey and New York. The drinking age was 18, so the club scene was flourishing, and Hades started off with a different lineup, but we were a cover band.
Awesome. And I know there's a lot of great Hades stuff out there. The main focus of Hades, tell us a little bit about Hades, what you guys did, albums you put out, things like that.
Okay. Well, in 1987, we released our debut album, Hades, Resisting Success. It was our first ever full-length album, and that was with a kind of a brand new lineup other than myself and the drummer Tom Coombs. So we put out two albums, and we opened for everybody except for Metallica. And when I say everybody, I mean Megadeth, Slayer, Nuclear Assault, Danzig, Overkill, just about every band that would play L'Amour, Metal Church. Anybody who came through Hades was like kind of the opening band in New York and New Jersey for quite a while. And we got a lot of really good reviews for the first Hades album, Resisting Success. We still have 30 years later, people consider it a classic, which is nice, like particularly in Germany. So we did a little bit of bunch of shows in America, but most of them were New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania. We didn't really have any long tours until exactly 30 years ago today. Hades was touring Europe and getting ready to play our last show ever because we decided to break up in the middle of the tour because we just were arguing and not getting along. But we did do a 3-week tour of Europe exactly 30 years ago, and I honestly, Carol, thought that was the end of my career because I had started calling myself Dan from Hades as far back as 1978, even before I picked up a guitar. And here we are 11 years later, and Hades is breaking up, and it's going to be over with. And I'm probably not going to ever be in a band again. I figured at that time.
And I know that you have a DVD, which you can, I think you still sell it on your website, if I'm not mistaken, if people still use DVDs anymore. There's a story that singer Alan Tecchio kind of recounted about Warrell Dane, saying something about resisting success.
Yeah, one of our roadies, Joe Allen, who was Anthrax's first roadie, he was in France with Anthrax, and Worrell was wearing Joe was wearing a Hades shirt that said Resisting Success, and Worrell said to him, yeah, they're doing a good job of that. And funnily enough, Hades got back together in 1999. We did 3 records for Metal Blade, and we kind of stopped playing as a band again in 2002, but in 2010, we were asked to do a reunion show in Germany at the Bang Your Head Festival with Twisted Sister, Queensryche, and was it Nevermore? What's Worrell's band? Sanctuary.
Sanctuary and Nevermore.
Right. And we remembered that we made sure we brought that up to him. It must have been 20 years later at the time because we have long memories. But he said, yeah, it sounds like something I'd say. He didn't deny it, which I thought was cool,
Yeah, and unfortunately he's no longer here. But
correct, right.
Now, I believe, and forgive me on the year, it might be a little off, my memory's kind of shot. Nonfiction happened in between that time, correct?
Your memory is right on, yes. After Hades broke up 30 years ago, I came home with no band, and there was this guy named Dan Nastasi who had a band named Mucky Pup, and he quit Mucky Pup, and he was saying, hey, we should do a band together. And I'm like, but both of us are songwriters, and neither one of us plays lead guitar. So what we decided to do was tune down and really not have too many guitar solos, pretty much no guitar solos. And then Danny went on to join Murphy's Law, and I started Nonfiction. Alan moved back from Texas after a short stint in Watchtower, and Nonfiction got a record deal, and we put out 3 records with Nonfiction, which also featured Mike Christie on drums and Kevin Bolenbach on bass. And we toured Europe in 1993 with Overkill. I should say we toured America. Nonfiction did a bunch more shows, all way spread out in America, from Los Angeles to Florida, more than Hades ever did in America. And then we toured Europe in 1993 with Overkill and Sabotage, and it would end up being Chris Oliva's last ever European tour.
Oh, yes, because he died not long after that, right?
Correct. And the first night we landed in Europe, we were in Munich, and Chris knocked on my hotel door, and he said, hey, I need a favor. I'm like, sure, what's up? And I didn't know him before that. And he said, is there any way I can borrow your equipment for a few days because my equipment was lost in transit or whatever. It's not going to show up. I'm like, of course you can, So he's like, all right, and I want to do something for you. He's like, we don't party, so how about you and another guy come on our tour bus? We have some extra room. I'm like, perfect, because, even though I love Blitz and Overkill, I was like a non-partier, and I stayed on the Sabotage bus, and I got to, watch Chris and got to know Chris very well and the other members of Sabotage. But, of course, being as it was Chris's last ever European tour, I have many memories of that, and specific things. But so that was Nonfiction. We toured Europe, and then kind of after that European tour, I fell in love with this girl named Gina, who I ended up marrying. We're still happily married 22 years later. And
congratulations!
Thank you.
You don't hear that very often.
No, you don't.
So that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, I got her initials tattooed on my wrist 2 weeks after we were officially dating. Like, we knew each other before that, but I fell in love with her, and I got her initials on my arm, and everybody thought I was crazy. Why are you doing that? You're never going to get married. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I love her, And we're still together. We're still best friends. Everything's great. But, again, after Nonfiction ended, I thought that was the end of my musical career. But this is becoming a running theme, Carol. I said that again, and then Hades got back together. I did 3 solo records, and then this guy you might have heard of named Bobby Blitz, and I did a record together in 2007. You heard of him?
Sounds a bit familiar. Familiar.
Good guy.
Yeah. I met him actually at Lemore's, Brooklyn in like 2000, I forget it was 2002 or 3, and the picture, I have it on the blog, and I have like the cheesiest smile in the world. I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting my idol, Bobby Blitz, oh my God. And he was so nice and so cool. I felt like I knew him forever.
He's a great guy, and he's a character, and we had inauspicious beginnings back in 1982 when Hades was a cover band. We were opening up for Overkill at the Union Jack, and I thought Overkill was taking too long for their sound check, and I was kind of standing on the stage with my hands on the stage, and Blitz says he remembers purposefully stepping on my fingers. And who would have thought in 1993 we'd get along over our love of the New York Knicks while we were on tour. Nonfiction was on IRS Records, and I would ask my record label, can you please fax me some stories from the Daily News, because we don't have any, there's no internet. We had no access to what was going on with the Knicks and the playoffs in 1993. So I would get the fax from the record label at the venue and then share it with Blitz and Didi, who were at the time big Knicks fans. They've since abandoned basketball. But when I put out my first solo record in 2003 called Dan Lorenzo, Cash is King, I only had a handful of fans, but one of them was Bobby Blitz. So he actually sang on my second solo CD. He sang on a song called Too Fast for Hate, which was a goof on the song titled Too Fast for Love. But and then we decided, hey man, we should do a record together one day, and we did in 2007 The Cursed Room Full of Sinners, and to me, and as well to Blitz, it's a magical record. We both still love it to this day, over 12 years later.
Any plans for any future records coming up, or any future music?
Other than Vessel of Light, with The Curse, with Blitz? We've talked about it. He's just so busy with Overkill, and now he has Metal Allegiance, which he does as well. but I know he loves the Curse as much as I did, or as much as I do, and he's Blitz is actually one of Vessel of Light's biggest fans. He was on Sirius XM a few months ago saying just that I'm one of his favorite guitar players, and that he loves Vessel of Light, and he played Son of Man, and that the show aired 5 times, and I think it actually helped. Now Son of Man is finally on Liquid Metal in the rotation, and I don't think that, I think Blitz might have had something to do with that. The fact that he gave it the seal of approval was really important to some people, and he even wore a Vessel of Light shirt in the Welcome to the Garden State video, which is super cool of him. But we would love to re-release the Curse CD, Room Full of Sinners, maybe with some bonus tracks. So we keep talking about it. It's a possibility.
Do you think maybe Dee Dee Verney might join you on some stuff?
Oh, absolutely not. Dee Dee Verney has we love Dee Dee. He's the best. He has his own solo career and his own side project, and I don't think he and Blitz want to. I believe it would probably even be contractually illegal for them to have a side project in the same band, because if you have 2 key members now, you could call it, Overkill Part 2. So, plus Dee Dee thinks I'm a horrible lead guitar player.
Isn't Dee Dee a bassist though?
Yes, he is. That's what he says he is. Yes. No, he's a great bass player, and he actually played on Hades, The Downside. He played on one song bass, but he likes my songwriting a lot. Dee Dee Verney's a big fan of Vessel of Light as well. He's just not totally enamored with my lead guitar playing for some reason.
Well, some people like chicken, some people like steak. That's how it goes.
No, I agree with Dee Dee. I'm not a very good lead guitar player, but he does like my style, as do I. But there's a lot better lead guitar players than me, for sure.
Well, everybody has their goods, in what they do. So,
exactly,
it all works out. It all works out. So now that we've broadened into that, let's talk about Vessel of Light. Tell us a little bit about it, how it came. I know, right? How did it come about? How did you get into things? And actually, I have to credit you on something. You called me out on something. I had one of the wrong pictures of Overkill on one of my posts that I did.
Right.
And you were like, no, that's my drummer.
Right.
Tell
Vessel
us
of Light,
about that.
The whole thing happened a little over 2 years ago. I was on my way to Austin, Texas, and I Googled Austin, Texas stoner rock bands, and I found a band called Ancient Wisdom. They had a song called The Opposition that I listened to and watched once. I thought it was cool. I listened to and watched it again. I thought it was really cool. By the 3rd time I heard it, I was convinced that Ancient Wisdom, The Opposition, was one of the 10 greatest songs of all time. So I started trying to contact the band, and I didn't have Facebook. I couldn't figure out a way to contact Ancient Wisdom, the singer, particularly Nathan. I finally tracked down his email address, and I was kind of almost like a fan, like, hey, man, I want to write about you in my magazine in New Jersey. I write for a magazine called Steppin' Out. So Nathan's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm glad you like it, So after a few months of this, we started talking on the phone and emailing each other on a regular basis. And he finally said, hey, what's going on with our side project? And I'm like, what side project? What are you talking about? And he's like, I was just wondering, that was his way of asking me, do I want to, write some songs with him? So I've always had a large amount of music on my home recording unit, whether it's 1 riff, 2 riffs, or a full song. And I mailed him a few things. He said he loved it. So I drove out to Cleveland, and we had 1 rehearsal. And then a month later, we had plans of recording from 10 in the morning until 10 at night. We got to the studio at 10 a.m. We found out we had to wrap up at 5 p.m. So we had 7 hours to record and mix the 6 songs we had. So maybe it was 7 songs, actually. But so we did that, and a couple days later, I was on a flight I was at Newark Airport with my wife. I was taking her to Hawaii for our 20th anniversary. The flight was delayed 12 hours, and by the end of those 12 hours, I had somehow got a record deal with Argonauta Records, a label out of Italy. So in November 3rd, 2017, Argonauta released Vessel of Light's debut EP. And then in September of 2018, we released Woodshed. We did our first show. Nathan flew in from Cleveland, had never met or jammed with Jimmy Shulman or Ron Lipnicki. We opened up for Life of Agony at the Bowery Ballroom, and we crushed.
Awesome. And speaking of that, do you have any more live shows coming up?
Yes, September 27th, we're playing Brooklyn, Lucky 13. Friday, September 27th, Eternal Black are opening, and then the 28th we'll play somewhere. We don't know yet, but you can check out our Instagram, Vessel of Light Music. And then the 29th, Ron Lipnicki and I are playing a benefit with Bobby Blitz down the Jersey Shore at a club called the Headliner. And I'm sure we'll have Nathan and Jimmy maybe jump up and do a song with us as well.
And just an FYI, Ron Lipnicki was also part of Overkill at one point, and Jimmy Schulman was part of Hades at one point.
Yeah, Ron Lipnicki, his first record he ever played on was a record called Hades Damnation. And then one day I had a Super Bowl party, and both Blitz and Ron were there, and I introduced them. And then a few months later, Blitz called me and said, hey, is that drummer really as good as you think? I'm like, yeah, why? And it was on a Sunday. And Blitz is like, well, we're leaving for Europe Wednesday, and we don't have a drummer. I'm like, oh, my God, how is this going to work? So Ron had to Blitz brought him to the city. They got a passport. They had one rehearsal, and then Ron was on a plane with to Europe with Overkill. So he played on the first Hades album. He played on my 3 solo albums, and then he was, in the real band called Overkill, and he was with Overkill for 10 years.
Wow. And Jimmy Schulman, doesn't he have a cameo in a pretty prominent band's video?
Yep. Jimmy was in the Beastie Boys Fight for Your Right to Party video. He's wearing a Rock Hard shirt, I believe, and a Hades shirt in 2 different scenes. I think I was offered to be in that video, but I couldn't get to the city that day. I probably didn't have the $5 it took back then to cross go through the Lincoln Tunnel. But Jimmy's in the Fight for Your Right to Party video, and now that Jimmy and Ron did so well in New York City on our first show, they basically Nathan said, yeah, let's get them in the band. So they're playing on the 3rd album. And back in May we played in Brooklyn, we played also in New Jersey, and then we played the New England Stoner and Doom Festival. And Jimmy and Ron kicked ass. So like I said, the 3rd Vessel of Light album will be all 4 of us, whereas the first 2 Vessel of Light albums was just myself and Nathan Opposition. But the new record we're working on now is all 4 of us, myself, Nathan, Ron Lipnicki, and Jimmy Schulman. And we also have a cover of Black Sabbath's Wicked World that's also on Sirius XM Liquid Metal as well. You can hear it tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I know by the time this airs will be after that, but just so you know, Carol.
Perfect. Thank you. And so now you're in the process of recording the 3rd album.
Right.
What can fans expect that's different from this album versus the first 2?
Well, when I first started writing the album, I wrote 10 songs and I thought that was it. And I'm like, wow, this album's not really doomy like the first 2. It's a little more up-tempo. And then after we recorded 10 songs, I wrote like 3 or 4 really doomy songs. So I'm like, you know what, let's just keep going. Let's record some more. So we have probably 14 to 15 songs to pick from. We'll pick the 10 or 11 best because I can't afford to mix everything, honestly, at this point. But I would say it's definitely not a repeat of the first 2 albums. It's definitely different. Some songs are definitely more up-tempo. One song could actually be on a Hades album. It's definitely way more up-tempo, and the drums are really aggressive, and there's a lot of action in it. But it's diverse, it sounds like us, but a little bit different. It's definitely not repetitious. There's a lot of different things going on, but it's all heavy. Most of it's tuned down, and I'm really excited about it. I mean, I went from thinking this would be a little one-off with Nathan to like this is one of the most exciting things in my life right now is Vessel of Light.
Awesome. And what are some of your influences that you'd say someone could hear on this album coming up? And maybe what some of the influences were on the previous albums if they aren't the same as this coming album.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, my biggest influence was always Kiss, and my music certainly doesn't sound like Kiss. And I was really late on the bandwagon for Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, and because I don't smoke pot or do drugs, I have a really short attention span. So I always wish Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, I loved their songs, I just wish they were shorter. So I think that's kind of what I'm going for. That's a big influence. And then somehow I worship the first 2 Danzig CDs, and I play along with them. I used to play along with them fairly often, and there's definitely some Danzig creeping in there. I feel Nathan, people have said it before, he's probably a little influenced because he's so much younger than me. He's more influenced by like Alice in Chains and Typo Negative, but Nathan came from a punk band, so he has a lot of influences too. So it's kind of an interesting combination because he's a Satanist from Cleveland and I'm a Catholic from New Jersey. So We have a lot of influence.
Is he really a
between the two
Satanist?
of us. Yeah, he is. But it's not what you think it is. It's nothing negative.
No, I
it's all
know.
good. You know?
It's like white magic, I guess, versus
Totally.
black magic,
Yeah,
so to speak.
totally.
Gotcha.
Yeah, him and his brother are both really nice people.
Mm-hmm. Well, so they throw good spells instead of bad. They're not
Absolutely.
Anton LaVey followers.
No, well, I think they might be, but it's a long discussion. I can't really explain it like they would.
Gotcha. Well, seeing that, we've both been kind of around the whole metal scene for a while, tell us what your thoughts are, about the metal scene in the 80s versus like what you see today. Like, what do you think is changed, is different, is good, bad, indifferent, so to speak?
Well, I mean, back in the old days, like Jimmy Shulman and I just had this conversation. We knew if we were going to play a club, it was going to be packed, whether if it was 1986, 87, 88, 89, it was just going to be packed every time because people didn't have, there was no cable television or it wasn't as prevalent. They didn't have their cell phones to stare at. So they were much more into music. And I think they were a lot more passionate about their bands that they were into. And now everybody in the world who plays an instrument has a band. They have some music on Spotify, on the internet, on YouTube, whatever. So there's just so many more things there's so much more noise out there where people maybe can't focus in on something that's really special. But, at the same time, it's also easy for me to have instantaneous contact with Vessel of Light fans in, Holland or Italy or Ireland, which is really cool. I mean, I love that. I used to, be the guy who'd answer the fan mail and try and promote the band, whether it was Hades or Nonfiction. And that's one of the reasons I never became a great lead guitar player is because I would spend so much time on promotion and answering fan mail, for real. And now it's like, it's so cool, I'll be having a little conversation via Instagram DM with a guy in Ireland who said, yeah, man, I bought the vinyl from Organata or All That's Heavy or whatever. And that's really cool. The sad thing is, of course, is that we also have fans who are like, oh, I love your band. When are you going to do the third album? I'm like, oh, cool. Do you buy the first album? You buy Woodshed? No, I can't afford it. So that's like, man, come on, man. Like people don't want to, they don't want to pay for a record nowadays, which I know everybody can whine and complain, but it's something worth whining and complaining about because it's really hard to, finish the mixes for the third album when you haven't sold enough copies of your first two albums.
Yes, and studio time is expensive. I do know that.
Yeah.
What bands are you currently listening to today? What gets you going and says, I like this?
Almost nothing. I listen to mostly sports radio. I don't listen to a lot of music. I have been listening to the new Ancient Wisdom. I'm, of course, big fans of Ancient Wisdom. I'm a big fan of Vessel of Light. I mean, it's horrible to say, but that's what I've been listening to lately. The newest bands I listen to are Clutch and Alice in Chains, and those bands were obviously out, 20 years ago. But I can't think of brand new bands that are out there that I listen to because I don't really, it's weird. I mean, I'm so picky when it comes to music. I like such a small percentage of it. And if you were to drive with me in my car, I recently bought, 100 songs on Apple Music, but it's mostly all old stuff, whether it's NWA or Neil Young or Marilyn Manson maybe. But I still listen to the stuff I grew up on, honestly. I still listen to Highway to Hell or Aerosmith Rocks like they came out yesterday. I mean, it's still, that's what really gets me off. There's not a lot of new music that gets me off. But that being said, when I was at the New England Stoner and Doom Festival, every band had a couple riffs like this band Eternal Black from Brooklyn. I'm like, holy shit, they're worth it. They're really good, So that's why we're playing with them in Brooklyn Friday, September 27th.
So they stood out.
They
weren't just doing the same thing like everybody else does.
No, they sounded like they wrote some Eternal Black wrote some riffs I was actually jealous of, which that never happened.
Well, that says a lot actually, because I think the trend, and tell me if you agree, is kind of like it was, like you always had like you always had your overkills, like you had one overkill and then there was 15 overkills, or you had 15 testaments or something like that. Yeah. And I think now that's kind of the same thing. I think everybody just kind of copies everybody eventually in the end in different ways. Maybe they do it in different styles, but...
Yeah, no, I agree.
Are there any chances for any Hades reunions, Nonfiction reunions?
No, but Vessel of Light has been covering Nonfiction Peaked. We did it at 2 of the shows back in May, and it went over really well, and it sounded really good. But no, I'm really not super interested in that right now. And if it wasn't all the original members, it wouldn't be worth it. With Nonfiction, that would never happen. And the short answer is no, that's not going to happen. I'm really just focusing on Vessel of Light. If anything, there'd be more of a chance for a reunion by the Cursed with me and Blitz, but Vessel of Light is where it's at for me right now.
Awesome. Well, with that said, now's the time where you can promote all your stuff, what's going on, where people can find you, and how everybody can become knowledgeable on Vessel of Light.
Okay, well, our website is, we don't have a website, but I'm on Instagram as Dan Lorenzo CK for Cassius King. I play a lot of cover songs with Ron and Jimmy. And Vessel of Light Music on Instagram. Vessel of Light Band on Facebook. If you wanted to email me, it's dan@danlorenzo.net. My website is danlorenzo.net, and I'm hoping everybody, if they've made it this far into the interview, they better go buy Vessel of Light's EP and Vessel of Light Woodshed.
That's wonderful. Do you have any final thoughts for us today before we depart and let you go back to playing your music?
Thank you so much for speaking with me, Carol.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Okay, pal.
Hey, Metalheads, it's Carol, your Metal Princess. Thanks so much for checking out our second Metal Wire podcast. And most of all, a huge thanks to Dan Lorenzo for a fantastic interview. Don't forget to check out his band Vessel of Light on Facebook and Instagram, or visit his website, danlorenzo.net, to get the latest news and pick up your Vessel of Light CDs. I also want to take this time to thank everyone for all your support in making the Metal Wire a success. I couldn't have done it without you, and I look forward to all your comments, suggestions, and thoughts. Special thanks to a great friend and designer extraordinaire, Jerry Gonzalez, for all your hard work on the blog and for helping to make the podcast look so good. Make sure you visit his Instagram page at jerrygo_art and his website at jerrygonzalezdesign.com. Thanks also to all my friends behind the scenes who continue to support my metal baby. Thank you. You are the greatest friends a girl can have. Don't forget to visit us at themetalwire.com and make sure you follow and subscribe. You can also check us out on Instagram, _metal_wire, and the Metal Wire Facebook page. Stop by and say hi, and don't forget to tell all your friends. I'll leave you with a clip of Vessel of Light's track Dead Flesh and Bone from their self-titled debut album. Thanks again, everyone, and remember, keep it hard, keep it heavy, and keep it metal. See you next month.